why should people care about fungi and mushrooms? Like, why do you do what you do?
Um, all right. Well, first of all, mushrooms. Like when I was in school, I didn't learn anything about mushrooms. I learned about plants. I learned about animals, and like they kind of mentioned, yeah, the fungi kingdom does exist. But I think what a lot of people don't actually realize is how important mushrooms are. You know, like if you step on the ground under your foot, just in the footprint where your foot lands on the ground or in the dirt, there's 300 miles of mushroom under just your foot. Literally, like mycelium. Um, I, I don't know how familiar you guys are with mushrooms and whatever, but mycelium is like this thread-like matrix that kind of weaves its way literally through everything, connects everything. And so without mushrooms, there's nothing. There's nothing to break things down. If there were no mushrooms, all of a sudden, the trees would die, and then there would just be mountains and mountains and mountains of dead logs that are not getting broken down. They're the great recyclers, and so it is my theory that the very first organism had to be the very first multi-celled organism had to be some kind of mushroom. So super important and like ignored until somewhat recently.
Do you think that's a just problem of just ignorance of people just aren't aware of these kind of things, or it's just not? Why do you think it's not such a prevalent and well understood area of nature? Like, is there a reason for that, or is it just a coincidence?
Well, I think that in the U.S., I think there is an effort to hide these things. They're so good for you, and it would be, if I was a pharmaceutical company that was unable to patent the benefits of mushrooms, I would want to shut anybody up who talks about mushrooms. I anecdotally, like anytime I talk about the health benefits of mushrooms, I am shadow banned into oblivion. It's actually pretty insane how, and I hate talking about this because it's negative. I don't like talking about the negative, but I cannot get my voice heard the way I think it needs to be heard because I'm so heavily everything. If I say the word anti-cancer, forget it. It's banned. They're shadow banning me. They don't want me to say anything about health benefits of anything because, like I said, if I had a vested interest in keeping people like me quiet, I would absolutely be doing that.
Me and
Mm.
Joel take lion's mane, but then that's sort of about it at the moment. What are some of the other health benefits from some of the other mushrooms off the top of your head?
All right, so you're obviously taking lion's mane for cognition. I'm assuming brain function, maybe like some kind of ADHD medication replacement. That would be lion's mane. The four other big ones, in my opinion, that are the most important. You have cordyceps, turkey tail, reishi, and chaga. Cordyceps would be for energy. If you ever decided, hey, I want to quit drinking coffee, I want to quit caffeine, cordyceps is the answer. It actually provides real energy. Caffeine is just simulated, essentially tricks your brain into thinking you're not tired. That's what caffeine does. Cordyceps has this beautiful compound called cordycepin in it that actually increases the ATP in your cells, which is real energy. That's what, the adenosine triphosphate, that is what the mitochondria uses to, perform cellular functions. So when you take cordyceps, you actually increase real energy and not just tricking your brain into thinking it's not tired. Then you got turkey tail. Turkey tail is the most unbelievable anti-cancer mushroom out there. Trametes versicolor. It literally looks like the tail of a turkey. Beta glucans and antioxidants and gut health. So besides anti-cancer, I would say gut health for turkey tail. Reishi would be probably the oldest functional medicinal mushroom in the world that's been used. Ancient, thousands of years, they used it in China. They called it Link Z. It was the mushroom of immortality. Great for anti-stress, heart health. if you have trouble sleeping, it's like not a sleep aid, but it can help with relaxation and stuff like that. And then you have chaga, chaga is kind of an outlier. They call it the king of mushrooms. It actually looks nothing like a mushroom. It's more of a fungus, partial to the birch tree, and it used for pineal gland activation. They say you should drink it at night or take it at night because that is when the pineal gland is most active. Meditation, Zen type things.
That's interesting. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of stuff just on that list that I want to get into. But I think maybe we should start with your own story in this because I'm very interested in how you got interested in this stuff and how you've satisfied your curiosity in this subject and basically how you went from being a boy and a teenager to then being this sort of expert and speaker and prophet of the benefits of mushrooms and their compounds. So talk to me about how you came across this journey.
Well, first of all, thank you for thinking that I have that much power. I wouldn't. Well, it started. I've always been in the woods. Always, it was like my policy. I had to go in the woods every single day, no matter what. And I would see mushrooms, and I would take pictures of them and think they were cool, but I didn't really look that much into it. And then there was a show narrated by David Attenborough called Planet Earth. I'm sure you guys have it over the pond as well. But there was one episode that was all about mushrooms. It was all mushrooms. And so from then on, I was super interested in mushrooms. I didn't really go too deep into it. But then maybe 5 years ago, I got some psychedelics and, basically decided, hey, this is my entire personality from now on.
Yeah, wow. Talk me through that process then. So you have a psychedelic experience. Obviously, I'd love to know more about that if you're willing to share. And then how do you then branch off into other, not non-psychoactive fungi and their sort of benefits?
Well, okay, so you have the psychedelic experience with I had no guide, I had no what to expect. I freestyled it. I just, it wasn't that important to me at the time. It was mostly like, okay, get high, have fun. And yeah, I had one of the most beautiful experiences that obviously it had to be beautiful in order for it to manifest into what it has become. But I took the mushrooms with no guidance, got where I needed to go as far as, if we're really going to get into, I am a very extreme high dose explorer. Extreme doses that I've never met anybody that is, I'm not bragging, okay, but I have had
above 10 grams,
several, maybe 8 to 10 experiences north of 20 grams, which is, and then maybe another 30 experiences between 10 and 20 grams, and then countless below. But that first time, it was just such an amazing experience, and it's important to understand that those first maybe 1 through 10 experiences, it's always, wow, that was really, really amazing, but it's still drugs. It's still just drugs doing this to me. And it took a long time of doing it as a drug to realize there's something more to this in the psychedelics than just get high, have fun. And so once I transitioned through that phase of, I don't know how familiar you guys are with psychedelics, but there's an ineffability to it where there's literally no words to explain what's happening, and I still don't know what's actually happening. curiosity is getting the best of me, so I keep doing it. The rule has always been like, when you get the message, you should hang up the phone. And I haven't hung up the phone because I think, I think I can take it further. I always think that there's more. And so far, I keep finding out that there is more. Like, I haven't made it to the end. Even though sometimes I think, maybe I made it to the end on that one. I still keep pushing it. I guess I've lost track of where the origin of the question was, but I'm just kind
Yeah,
of rambling here.
for context, like we've done probably about 3 grams is the most we've done. But I'm curious what it's like above 20 grams.
Well, are you guys? Do you guys? Early on in this journey of mine, I made it a rule that like it was very important to do this all alone with no. I know there is like a level of safety involved with like having a trip sitter, and I do agree with that. But at a certain point, I think it's important you have to push the envelope. If you're not pushing it, you can't. Okay, so are you guys doing this together? Like, you guys live, like, you guys get together and do this together?
So
Yeah, we've tripped together before. I think in every experience, it's important that if I do have people there, is people that I trust, and that like sort of right vibe is created through the sounds and music around me, and that kind of stuff. Yeah, it's not the kind of like go to a house party and take drugs to get high type situation. It's not that.
Right. Yeah, and I don't have a problem with people doing that, but I just think like choose a different drug if that's what you want to do. Go to a house party and get high. Um, but some people want to do it. In my opinion, and the reason why I need to be alone is because even if I'm at home with my soulmate, the person closest to me that is my perfect match, I'm still a different person when I'm alone in the shower than when I'm with my soulmate. It's still a different person because I believe that psychedelics are there to introduce the self to the self. And when you have, I think that the bad experiences are when you're introducing the self to the self and you don't like the self that's being introduced to the self. I think that's where negative experiences come from. Um, so that's why I think it's super important. You have to be all the way alone. Nobody from the outside. And I understand, yeah, obviously if you're going to do that, it needs to be people that you trust, and you also have to be able to like shoo them away, I think. But again, I don't have experience. I don't have experience doing it in groups. I've only done it by myself for years, all alone, nobody around, and that's just the way I prefer to do it. Maybe it's not the safest method, but I just assume that maybe I have enough experience to make it, come out on the other side alive.
So was it then realizations from psychedelic trips that made you interested in these other non-psychoactive mushrooms? That was sort of like my foundational question. Um, yeah, was that a progression? I guess.
It was absolutely a progression. I started buying all these books and reading all this stuff. And what I was in the beginning, I was finding like I would skip the pages that didn't talk about psychedelics. That was really all I cared about initially, which makes sense. And once I got into cultivation of the psychedelics, that was when I moved on to other functional mushrooms. It started with lion's mane. I do believe that lion's mane is the most important thing that I consume every single day. It's shocking how difficult it is to get people to take lion's mane. Mostly because they don't know about it. It's not it's not like part of standard diets or um, uh, it's just like a hidden gem that it's really difficult to get people to take it every day. Um, so yeah, it was just kind of a natural shift, and also like I wanted to start a business, and psychedelics are illegal where I am. So essentially, like as a front, I can provide the functional mushrooms, and then my company, the Flying Fungi, I obviously don't sell psychedelic mushrooms, but I sell grow kits so that you can grow your own psychedelic mushrooms illegally away from me. Um, and so having those functional mushrooms at the forefront of it certainly help with driving people to grow their own psychedelics.
Yeah, man, that's a cool story. I like it a lot. Why do you always feel like you were drawn to being in the woods? I mean, what's the story there? Because that's not a sort of usual characteristic, and I'm interested in that.
When I was growing up, there was woods behind the first house I grew up in, and then we moved again, and we had woods again. And don't get me wrong, I played video games. But while a lot of the times my friends were busy playing video games, I was in the woods building fucking tree forts. And, sometimes by myself. All my friends would be, at home playing video games, and I would be building tree forts. And so, like, I gained use. I ended up in construction, ultimately, probably because I was building tree forts as a 7, 8, 9, 10-year old. And it built valuable skills, not only in building, but also in, this is difficult to explain, but because of my experience in the woods and so much time spent in the woods, I am like a super efficient mover through the woods. I'm super quiet. I'm super. If I bring somebody on a hike with me, I don't see shit because everyone else is too loud. If I'm alone, I see everything. The deer. I've had experiences with bears and mountain lions. If I'm alone, I can have those experiences. But if I drag my son with me or something, it's too loud. And again, another solo activity that I'm almost always involved in.
You become one with the woods.
Doing my best to be at one with the woods. Yes, absolutely.
But do you feel a spirit of the woods that sort of you come into contact with, and is it different in the different forests you go into, or is this kind of a universal essence that you feel when you're in that environment?
I would say I feel at one. Yes, a universal essence. When if I'm alone in the house, I don't do a lot of talking to myself. But when I'm walking in the woods, I'm out loud talking to myself because I think I'm talking to the woods and myself. It's not like I'm gaining sacred knowledge from the woods, but I'm using the trees around me to bounce ideas off and maybe sort things out in my life. You can talk to the trees. And then I also want to add an anecdote about mushrooms. I do like to take mushrooms while I'm in the woods, and I found that you can speak to the mushroom in English, and the mushroom will respond to you in English. Um, and so, yes, the trees, the mushroom, myself. You've got the animal kingdom in myself. You've got the plant kingdom with the trees, and you've got the fungi kingdom with the mushroom. And we're all meshing together, and it's something. There's more to it than just walking around in the woods.
It's kind of like there's this therapeutic power with just being
100%.
being around trees.
Yep.
Like what is that? Like they seem to just clear your mind and sort of bring the most present, best version of yourself out.
I would say that they literally change your vibration. If you are in a negative vibration and you go touch a tree, it will change your vibration. Like when you get like chills or goosebumps or just a general good feeling, your vibration is changing from a negative one to a positive one. Or if you start feeling negative, you've moved vibration from a positive vibration to a negative vibration. I think that the trees are at a pretty constant positive vibration. And so if you can get into the trees, touch the trees your body will naturally want to resonate with the vibrations that are happening around it. And so a mood changer, absolutely. 100%.
Yeah, I remember there was a woods when like a 5 minute drive away from my university last year, and when it all just sort of all the sort of noise and bullshit of being a student, especially in like the uni I was in, and all the sort of everything that comes with that, I always found it very useful to go into that natural environment, and it was almost like it was like my constant inner narrative went on mute as soon as I entered into the forest, and all the sounds were just the crunching of leaves underneath my feet, and there's this sort of rustling of the leaves in the breeze that sort of shush my mental my mental noise down, to a to a nice peaceful hum. So I can 100% relate to that. So you go into the woods every day. Is that sort of part of your routine then?
Well, right. I would say the last 2 weeks have probably been the most spent out of the woods in a long time. I'm actually in the process of moving out of my home that I've lived in for 38 years, and I'm like, to be honest, I'm extremely distraught. I'm right now. They're in the house cleaning the carpets. Tomorrow they're going to take pictures, and the house is supposed to go on the market by Friday. Um, I haven't really decided exactly what I'm going to do. I bought this camper that I'm in right now, and you know, I'm thinking I'm going to, it's getting winter here. I'm going to head south, hopefully, and maybe escape the winter for once. I'm literally at a crossroads in my life that I don't know what tomorrow is going to bring. Um, I kind of spent 18. My son, I have a son. He is an adult. He's 18 years old. Um, so the last 18 years, I've just kind of spent my attention belonged to him, and now he's an adult. So I think that I can like abandon him for a month or at a time, and I think that will be fine.
Yeah,
So
you
I
won't
think
die. No,
that's what I'm going to do.
that's quite exciting. I mean, it's scary, but it's exciting, isn't it? It's an adventure.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm absolutely terrified. Yes.
Mm. Wow. Yeah. So, talk to me then. Talk to me about foraging. Um, is that something a technique you learnt about in the books you read? Is it a consequence of intuition that you picked up on in a psychedelic experience? And then talk to me about sort of your journey developing the skill of being able to forage and recognize different mushrooms and 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 experience that world for yourself from a personal perspective, because that must create a sort of deeper connection than just buying something from somebody else or being given things. Actually going out into the woods that you love and connecting with that spirit and collecting the beauty that's there and using it for your own sort of benefit.
Yeah, absolutely. Foraging, time and experience. A lot of people are just like, well, I don't know this, I don't know this, I don't know that, I don't know what's poison, I don't know what'll kill me, what'll save me. Um, Time and experience. If you're going in the woods and I'm also like in the U.S. you have to technically be certified. So I had to go take a class and get licensed to. Anybody can go in the woods, pick mushrooms, and eat them and give them to people. But I actually have a license to go in the woods, pick mushrooms, and then sell them. So I had to take a course. It starts with some books. It starts with just going in the woods, taking pictures, and identifying some mushrooms. I probably picked 100 pounds of mushrooms before I ever even thought, let's eat one. It was over a year before I was like, I think I'm gonna eat this one. And it was super. It was a Maitake hen of the woods. Was the very first mushroom that I found and ate. It was super satisfying. It felt really good. I felt like I was nourishing myself with almost like nourishing myself with myself, because I went out, I found it, I foraged it, I cleaned it, I cooked it, I did all the things, and yeah, super gratifying and satisfying to hunt for food, find it. Also, free. There's nothing like better than free food. I hashtag free food on any foraging uh, post that I make. Um, but as far as it's just time and experience, you know, now that I know which one's a lion's mane, I can't mistake it. Now that I know which one is a turkey tail, it's super hard to mistake it. I know which, in my area, there are two mushrooms out there that'll actually kill you. Like, if you eat it, you're going to die. There's no, as far as I know, there's no coming back from it. One is called um, uh, Amanita virosa. That would be the death angel, or the angel of death. You eat that, you're dead. Then there's some deadly gallerinas that they call them funeral bells. Those will absolutely kill you. And this is super sad, but my first construction job, uh, the my boss, his father actually died 2 or 3 months before I started there, because he was in his backyard and he picked a poison mushroom and he ate it, and he lasted 7 hours. It killed him. So I'm actually reasonably close to somebody who has been killed from eating a poison mushroom. The story was on Oprah. It was big national headlines when it happened. That was, I'm going to say, 2006, 2007 or so. That was when that happened. It's just, things like that, to me, as sad as it was that my buddy lost his father, that's super fascinating to me. I want to know, what drove him to pick that mushroom, because I've been trying to work it out. It doesn't make any sense. That's a really hard mistake to make, and a fatal mistake. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't know how, I don't know which mushroom it was, kind of like too afraid to ask kind of thing. But that's super fascinating that they can kill you.
Mm. Yeah, so like the main sort of, when you like go foraging, that's normally to eat, or like, is that like each mushroom does something different to you, makes you feel a different way, or like it's like a normal sort of food thing? Like, what's kind of the what do you like, um instead of just like being sort of collecting and stuff, is there, what sort of the food benefit?
So, like, all right, you got your oyster mushrooms. That's going to be a nice protein. Um, and then you've got your polypores that you can eat. Chicken of the woods, which is the orange and yellow one. I don't know how familiar you guys are with it. And then you have hen of the woods. That's another polypore. Those are just, to me, that's just as close to fine dining as you're going to get, picking something raw out of the woods, for food, for nourishment. And then, when you're looking for your reishis, your ganodermas, you're looking for your turkey tails, trametes, your chagas, obliquus, and your lion's mane, your hericiums. Those are more for therapeutics, those benefits that we talked about in the beginning. But to be honest with you, I do all of that foraging under the cover of hoping, which is why I'm going to start traveling. I want to find a psychedelic. I've never found a wild psychedelic in Western New York. And I don't find any reports of other people finding psychedelics. There's only a few options of possibilities that you could find. You could find some subs or some ovoids, maybe some P cyanescence. But I've never found them. So that's really, to be honest, that's really what I'm out looking for, is, the natural psychedelics, which
Yeah,
I've yet to find.
I might be wrong on this, but isn't there like thousands of different types of mushroom? Like, there must be some sort of like rare ones, and like, is it, yeah.
Well, there's hundreds of thousands, millions of different mushroom or fungi species. There's about 200,000 fruiting, 200,000 species that create fruiting bodies. So there's all kinds of molds and slimes and uh, just general fungi that doesn't actually turn into a mushroom. And then um, you have your classic fruiting bodies that uh, Yeah, it's just. Were you asking how many there were that produce psilocybin? Right now, there's like 300 or so different species that produce psilocybin. They're mostly all in the genus Psilocybe. There's also Pinalius, which will produce a few different species of psychedelic producing. You got laughing gyms, you've got conocybes and enocybes, all produce psilocybin in tiny amounts. So for the most part, we just focus on the psilocybe genus. But yeah, there's about 300 or so different. They're finding new ones all the time. There's a brand new one that just was discovered called Zapoticorum, psilocybe zapoticorum, which I'm super interested in. It's cultivatable, so that might be something that I attack next.
Do the different species of psychedelic mushrooms produce different um, spiritual experiences? And
Um,
is that a trend, or is it sort of just a psilocybin is psilocybin, or could it depend on maybe what country the mushroom is mostly from? And is there any connection there? Do you think?
well, interestingly enough, psilocybin is not the chemical that makes you trip. Psilocybin, when you eat it, whatever happens in your stomach, I believe it's called dephosphorating. It dephosphorates the psilocybin into another molecule called psilocin. That is actually the tryptamine that makes you trip. Um, but these mushrooms also come with this large cocktail of other active ingredients, other tryptamines. There's baeocystin, there's norbaeocystin, there's norpsilocin, and I think there's like 25 trace tryptamines that happen naturally in the mushrooms. And what happens is, so if you're going to eat a psilocybe cubensis, it's going to be dried. Somebody's put it in a dehydrator for a certain amount of time. Yeah, that preserves the psilocybin and the psilocin, but I think a lot of that you lose those trace compounds in the drying process. Um, so yes, to answer your question, if you go pick a mushroom out of the woods, there's also a difference between wood loving and dung loving. Um, uh, as far as the cocktail of tryptamines in there, which is why it's interesting and why I want to find, a natural psychedelic that I found in the woods and just eat it before it's dried, because you're going to get that extra whatever's in there, and yes, that's going to change the experience you have. And I think, from strain to strain, you got your penis envies and your golden teachers and then your albinos. Strain to strain, it's that different cocktail of trace chemicals that are changing the difference in experience.
Mm. Yeah, because I always wondered that. It's interesting. Well, maybe your next stage of life is an adventure, traveling around, trying all these different varieties and having different experiences, man.
I think that's where I'm headed. At least get out of the cold for the winter.
The mushrooms are
Yeah.
kind of like guide you, like as you go on your travels. They tell you where to go next.
Yeah, I honestly do not have a plan. Um, I have no plan. I'm just going to start driving, and when I see a good place to stop, I'm going to stop and get out.
There's something terrifyingly beautiful about that, though. You know, that kind of.
Terrifying, yes, because I'm a homebody.
Mm,
I'm not a traveler. Um, I've lived with my grandma for all of my adult life. I don't, and she has moved to a nurse. I took care of her for as long as I could. Now she's beyond the scope of my ability to care. She's in her nursing home. That's why this house is going up for sale, and I'm I'm gonna have to figure out life without grandma.
yeah, man.
It's
Uh,
living life on the edge.
Yeah, you could say that. I did pick up. So there's a weird structure to the way I started in the psychedelics. Whatever it was, 6 years ago now. So like 2 years of pretty solid psychedelic use, very uh, disciplined, and making sure, okay, I'm not taking them every day, I'm not taking them every week. I was super regimented in, okay, no more 14 days between, no matter what. And so I was getting into this, I was started diving into meditation and breathing exercises and yoga, and I was feeling very calm and zen. And then one day my cousin called me. He's like, yo, you want to go skydiving? I was like, yo, say no more. And so I took up skydiving, and honestly, like, all that zen that I was gaining literally went out the window when I jumped out the plane. And I kind of had to start over in this skydiving. Mushrooms, skydiving has shaped into this absurd search for peace. And believe it or not, I was finding peace in the time between plane and parachute. That's where my peace was. Between plane and parachute, I would find quiet. So there's kind of this weird element of, I was on this path, I shifted off of it, took up skydiving. It's a ridiculous hobby. Then I got injured skydiving, so I haven't jumped in. Only did like 15 skydives this summer.
Only 15 in one summer. Yeah, that's casual. Yeah.
Oh well, that sounds like a lot, but like, and it sounds like I suck at it. I'm not like a talented skydiver in any way, shape, or form. I only have 130 jumps, but there's like the guys that I jump with have thousands, and so I'm still kind of the noob. And so there was this weird, like, yeah, getting into the mushrooms and, finding peace that way, and then throwing it all away just to jump out of the plane and trying to find it again. I suppose that was an interesting path that I took.
So was the journey then trying to find that same level of peace when you were hurtling towards your death on the ground? Your body doesn't know about the parachute. Your body probably thinks you're dying. So is that sort of what you're implying, that it's like the journey to maintain peace even in situations like that, or find a different level of peace when you're putting your life at risk and that thrill that you experience on a skydive?
There's a certain element of violence, and when you first start, the first time you go out the plane, it's a lot different than the 100th time you go out the plane. I wouldn't call it violence. I would call it turbulence, maybe. But no, it is violent. It's loud. It's violent, and it's extreme, and that it's a super interesting exercise in fear, because all the good things are on the other side of the fear. Like, whatever you want to do in your life, what's his name? Bob Proctor. Bob Proctor. I don't know if you guys are familiar with Bob Proctor, but he's like I think he passed away now. But he talks about this terror barrier. So whatever you want to do, if you don't blast through the terror barrier, you're going to bounce off of it and end up back where you started. So you guys starting this podcast, right? How long were you guys talking about starting a podcast before you actually did the podcast, right? You had to get through the terror barrier to start doing a podcast. Whatever you want in life, you can have it. You just have to start doing it and stop talking about doing it and actually do it. So that's the terror barrier. And for skydiving, like, once you go out the door, you can't get back in the plane. So that's the terror barrier. You have to get through the terror barrier, or you can never get on that other side of fear.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
I can relate to that. I've been skydiving once, and it's like you have a massive wait before the plane, and once on the helicopter, sorry, and then you just go up and up and up, and your fear is just building and building, and then you realize helicopter doors aren't supposed to open, and then you've got one person by one all jumping out, and then next thing you're like tilted over, and because when you first do it, you have to have someone else with you, so you get tilted over on your knees, and you're just looking at this, like, all these clouds, and you're so scared. But once you go, and you're in it, it's fine. And then when you land on the ground, it's like the relief and like the, oh my God, what have I just done? So it's a really good one for overcoming fear. Really good.
And it totally like you said, you have to let go. As soon as you are out of the plane, that fear's gone. It's all the way gone. It's not like you're still scared. You actually forget about the fear, and that's kind of, in order to get those benefits out of a psychedelic experience, you have to do the same thing. You have to let go. You have to let the mushroom take control. If you try to control the mushroom, you're gonna get your ass kicked. Period. You can't control the mushroom, and if you don't push through the door, uh, you're screwed.
I
And
love I
so,
love
like,
the sorry.
very good good parallels between skydiving and psychedelics for sure.
Yeah, I was gonna say I love the analogy that you can't then climb up back into the plane. You can't, and it makes me think on many metaphorical levels of like, um, you know, in life we are kind of doing that in a way, right? I remember there was this lecture from Alan Watts. I'm sure you'll know who that is, where he talked about how silly it is that people grip on so tightly to life. Because what life is it's like once you're born, it's like you're being thrown off an edge and you're just falling and falling and falling to an eventual death. Because that's where we're all going, right? We're mortal beings. And people try and hold on so tight to all the things going on in their life. They hold on to their sense of self, their relationship, their career, their status, all those kind of things. When really all of that is falling with you. And that's the nature of your existence. You know, everything's going to end at some point, so there's no point gripping on so tight and creating that anxiety and that fear when really, like you say, we all need to let go. And I love that idea about that. There is this line of you want to do something and you reach a point and then suddenly there's fear. And it's like what you actually want in life is over that fear edge. That's where the freedom is. It's like that's why I love the quote from Carl Jung where he says, "That which you most want to find is where you least want to look." The things you want are beyond that wall, and you have to almost when you reach that point, you start feeling it. That's not an indicator to shy away. It's the opposite. It's an indicator to go further. And
Absolutely.
yeah, it's
The
beautiful, man.
greatest treasure is in the cave you're afraid to go in, for sure.
Mm, yeah.
I'm sure there's a better way to word that, a more eloquent way to say that, but the cave you fear to enter holds the treasure you seek. How about that?
Mm, yeah, man. It's nice.
So
It's nice.
maybe with your travels, like that, you're gonna find that.
Mm,
I'm definitely in search of all of those ideas that you were just trying to, you're trying to, and that's another beauty of the psychedelic experience. Like, we're struggling to put words to, like, you're trying to solve life, letting go, and a Carl Jung quote. Uh, it, you could go into the psychedelic realm, gain a true understanding of all that you just did your best to lay out, even though no matter how hard we try, we cannot properly express what we're trying to express here. You can understand it in such great detail, and then for some reason they erase your memory before you come out, and so you
mm,
can't take that knowledge from the psychedelic space into the non-psychedelic space. And that's what's so interesting about the psychedelics. It's what keeps me coming back. Like, I want to take that knowledge that I'm learning inside the psychedelic space and pull it out, and I can't. It's like they do the Men in Black flashy thing right before you come out. I don't know if you guys watched the Men in Black with Will Smith and what's the other fella? But they keep erasing everybody's memory so they don't remember about the aliens, and that's kind of what happens with psychedelics is they just erase your memory before you come out of it, so you can't actually conceptualize these ideas.
no, yeah. It's like It's like you come into contact for a brief moment with the answer to all of your questions, and then when it's over, you just are left with the questions again.
Look God right in the eyes, baby.
Yeah, yeah, it's mad, isn't it? And you just can't explain it. Go on, Jake.
do you think like there's kind of like a storage of trips? Like, what do you find when you go back into the psychedelic experience? You then sort of maybe remember like a previous one, and they sort of connect.
Yes. I have a lot of. There's this place that I go. It feels like it's underground, and I know that this because I've gone there multiple times. It feels like it's underground, and when you're there, it's like a subway terminal. To me, it seems like a space where like all the entities, aliens, gods, whatever, they're all meeting here to then like transport themselves. This is like a transit of all kinds of spirits and entities. There's humans there. When I get there, nobody's saying anything to me, but the feeling that I get is they're looking at me and they're thinking, "Why are you here? Why are you back here? You're not supposed to be here." Because I cheated to get there. I took drugs to get there. You know, I feel like the rest of the entities that are there can naturally get there. Maybe they're humans that can do astral projection. Maybe there's humans that can go into these insanely deep meditations and get themselves away from their bodies. And so, yes, this is a recurring space that I go, I don't know, 1 out of 10 times that I have mushrooms, I go to this like subway place, and this is where all the entities and spirits meet and then go. It feels like it's underground. I can't say that it's underground for sure, but yeah.
So I'm
For sure.
guessing you have like you think that this when you take psychedelics you enter a realm rather than it just being a projection of your brain.
Yes. I think what happens with the mushrooms is your vibration changes, and now you're able to. It would probably benefit me a lot to really dive deep into some meditation, because I do think that there are people that can achieve what I feel like I'm achieving on psychedelics without the psychedelics. Um, so, yeah, I do think that, they call it a trip because I think that you leave. I think you actually go somewhere that's not in this dimension. And for example, if I could change, if I could match this vibration, I should be able to just phase my hand right through. If I could match this, whatever this vibration is, I should be able to get through, phase right through. And so I think that you're changing the vibration of your body, and you're opening up your pineal gland, and it's allowing it to escape. You can imagine. What is imagination? You just imagining something? Like our brain is between the ears. I'm just rambling here. I don't even know how I got
No,
this
but this
far
is
on
good.
this.
Keep going. Keep going.
Like your brain is between the ears, but the mind, like there's nothing in science that says the mind is here. I think that the mind is literally everywhere, and it's like this thing that we can kind of tap into if you're awareness. That's it.
Mm.
Awareness is what. Do you know what a Karen is? In 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 Europe, do they have? You go in the woods. Do they have little spots where somebody will stack rocks?
Maybe, maybe, I guess. Yeah.
All right. So when I'm walking in the woods, a lot of times I'll see a neatly piled stack of rocks, and I think that it's a super interesting exercise in consciousness. So let's say, um, Jacob, you go in the woods, you take 3 rocks and you stack them up neatly, right? Joel goes in the woods, he sees the pile of rocks, right? he sees it, and the idea is he's supposed to add one rock to it, right? So when Joel sees the pile that Jacob left, Joel enters into that consciousness, but Jacob can't know that he entered into the consciousness until he returns to the pile of rocks and sees that another one has been added, right? So does something metaphysical happen? Is there some kind of metaphysical happening that occurs when Joel adds the rock? Does something get sent through the ether to signal to Jacob that he's joined that consciousness? And so that's what I mean, that it's something that can be tapped into. You've created this and other people can join in too. Like I could go find that pile. I'm sorry, there's guys outside. Looks like they're staking out my property. Yeah, they're doing land surveying right outside the window here. So, whew, I'm gonna get a smoke a joint. Consciousness. It's just super interesting, like impossible to conceptualize ideas, and you get a little closer to conceptualization with psychedelics, I think.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I think there is a distinction between the brain and awareness, or like, there's, I mean, the way I think about it is there's something deeper than Joel Clifton in me, that like there's this spirit thing that possesses this physical body, that is now being connected with the label Joel Clifton, that has this life where he does these things, and he has these certain set of skills, and he has these personality traits and abilities, but that's not what's underneath it all. There's something possessing that. There's the puppeteer for this puppet that's talking to you now.
Yep.
And I think that puppeteer is what people consider like the oneness. That's my little fragment of the oneness, and that is what can go into these different spiritual places. That's what can connect with nature on a deep level. That's why you feel this certain essence when you're in the woods and all these kind of things. There's a part of ourselves that we don't understand, and maybe it's been called the unconscious mind or the soul or the Godhead or whatever word you want to use for it. But there's something different about what's in us. And I think, part of the reason that I'm so curious about, I'm a psychology student for context. So part of the reason I'm so curious about the mind and why people do the things they do, and I have to come on to podcasts like this and talk about this kind of stuff and make content about it, is because I'm trying to figure out what is that essence that's deep beneath everything else. What is that life force? Who is that? Is that a being? Is it something that I'm just a tiny fragment of? Is that what God is? These are the questions that that's why I feel like such a weirdo internally as a 20-year-old male in this like modern world, because those are the questions I want the answers to. And that's why I like talking to people like yourself. So that's a long ramble to say I like what you're saying, man.
Can I ask? Can I add to? So, Andrew, you said something about like how our mind isn't here. I wanted to like ask Joel's thoughts on that, but can you just sort of repeat what you said about like how sort of our surroundings and something make up our mind?
Well, Joel said, did you say Godhead? Like I've never heard that, but I understand what you're saying.
So let me just add context to that. So the Godhead, I think, was in Eastern philosophies is the idea of the fragment of the divine we have within us, divine consciousness that is within us. That's what was considered the Godhead. Carry on.
Well, people ask me a lot, like, do you believe in God? And not in a religious sense, but I think that we're all God. Do you believe in God? Yeah, I believe in myself. Absolutely. But like, do I think that God is the creator, or do I think that God is the source, the very source of creation that we all have in us a little bit? And and like that is in my conceptualization of God. It doesn't. It's not like a grandpa in the sky to me. And so like, yes, I talk to God, but I'm talking to myself through myself. And we each have, like you said, we each have a little piece of that divine, maybe more than a little piece. Like, what do they say? You're not a drop in the ocean. You're the entire ocean in a drop. Because, you know, a drop of water is the same in that could fit here. It's the same as can fit in the ocean. Like, uh, we've just been individualized because, like you said, you're identifying with Joel Clifton, and you've essentially had this persona created around you. You didn't actually create the persona. You can participate in creating it, but the persona is created for you to essentially abide by if you want. And so you have to escape that. You can't identify with the persona that is it meant for you, or was it forced upon you? But that's that's the illusion of separation, is that individual persona to jump into.
Well, that's why I think there's so much wisdom when Shakespeare said that all the world's a stage. I mean, people interpret that on its simple wisdom that, you know, people pretend to do things. Life is a little bit fake. People are a bit superficial. Yes, that's true. But if you deep it, like, you are given this role. It's like you're casted into life. This is your name. This is where you grew up. This is your genetic profile and personality disposition. These are the values that your parents and your society instill into you as a child. And you have to play that part in the world. And you are acting out that role. And it's not something we should be complaining about, or we shouldn't detest that that's the nature of reality, because it just is, right? That's just how things are. But I think you have to be. I think that's what spiritual or psychological awakening is you open your eyes and realize, oh, I'm not Joel Clifton actually. You know what I mean? I'm the spirit that possesses Joel Clifton in the world. So then you get this detachment, right? Which people could view as, I mean, it's dangerous, I guess, if you haven't got the psychological health to maintain that. I think that's why things like schizophrenia and psychosis occur, because people detach and they don't know what to do about that. Their whole reality just goes into this dysfunctional hellscape. But if you're prepared to like detach from that consciously, then life becomes your playground then, because you are just an actor on stage, and this will eventually end, and it is just a show. And just like in any good play, there are difficult moments, there are villains, right? There are things that go wrong, there's conflicts that must be resolved. That's how stories work. Your life is a story. Once you see that, you're like, there's like this deep spiritual relief where you go, it doesn't fucking matter anymore. I don't have to keep animating this Joel Clifton persona and pretending that he's real. I can see him for what he is. He's a game, and I can enjoy playing that game.
I love that. I mean, that's the hurdle, is disconnecting. The hardest thing is disconnecting from that. Is it a belief? It's more than a belief. It's a belief system, and it's ingrained into you from birth. And it's that very well might be what the Matrix actually is. You can't see the Matrix unless you zoom out. You know, like, there's the comedian, he says, like, you think you're on a planet right now. Zoom out. Zoom out. Like, you're not. you're in a galaxy, like you're in a universe. Just keep zooming out, and the further you zoom in, the more attached to the Matrix you are. You know, I personally think that movie is a documentary, not a movie. I think like that is the way. I think it's a lot, and like the dichotomy. Geez, the red and blue. You know, the red pill, you wake up. The blue pill, you stay asleep. I don't know how closely you guys monitor United States politics, but like it's right in our faces, red and blue. You know, blue, red. Things were. America has calmed down greatly in the last 1 week. 1 week, I think generally people are feeling better here because of the red blue dichotomy. A lot of people took the red pill and are waking up. I don't know how much of a villain Donald Trump is in the UK, but here you either love him or you hate him. And I think we were spiraling in a very terrible direction prior to last week.
He's quite a villain here, I think.
It's a difficult one, isn't it? I mean, one of my things is I don't get involved in politics whatsoever because for me it's like a waste of my finite mental peace. But one principle I do always stick to is I don't believe anything I see on media and the news and things like that. My world is the world that I actually interact with on a daily basis and is the texture of my mind and the relationships I have with people. So, but I do agree with you that the world is in an interesting direction, and I do think that people, I mean, I guess it just happens as time passes. People are molding the way they look at things in an interesting direction, and who knows where that's going. And it's exciting.
Can I ask you, Andrew, like when you disconnected, like how did you sort of keep that psychological stability with the real world?
It's a good question.
So, first of all, I will say, I don't think that I'm like mentally. I will say that what has happened to me on psychedelics, I think there are a lot of people that would never have been able to come out on the other side mentally sound. And so when, like you said, when you disconnect, when you zoom out, if you want to call it that, how do you live? Basically, you're asking, how can you live your daily life knowing that you just have to. I try not to be participating in the Matrix, but like I have to go put fuel in my truck. I have to go to the grocery store and buy friggin' bananas. You know, I have to go do that stuff. But at night, when I close my eyes, I try to. It's super difficult to escape the Matrix. I haven't escaped it. I think sometimes I spend time outside of it, but for the most part, I'm still wrapped up in it. There's no. I would have to have somehow unlimited funds, a complete disconnect from family and friends. Essentially, you have to, in order to disconnect from it, you have to become like a biological nothing. You know, you have to. It's impossible.
I'm going to go on a ramble here, Jacob, but you're going to see how it comes around to what's similar to that question you just asked. So, I'm reading Carl Jung's autobiography at the moment. Very interesting. And I think I mentioned this to you a couple of weeks ago about how he described his experience as a child and a young man as if he had two personalities inside him. He had his type 1 personality, which was the 15-year-old boy that had to go to school and that was insecure about the way he looked and his intellect and was afraid of talking to women and struggled and got bullied and all this, like his actual real world personality, right? Real world in inverted commas. And then he said he had his type 2 personality, right? And he said he only was able to articulate what this was later in life through his understanding and his wisdom. But his type 2 personality felt like it had been here before, many, many times, in fact. It felt like a universal knowledge and spirit inside him, kind of like what makes up his conscience or made up his intuition. And it would speak to him through drives that he might have for certain interests or ways that he would feel in certain situations. He felt like there was this
Intuition.
dichotomy inside himself. And he said in the book that maybe one of the purposes of his life was to bring those two personalities together. And that type 2 was his self, who he actually was, that kind of deep essence beyond the persona that I was alluding to earlier. Type 1 was the guy in the persona that he is in the world. And the purpose of his life was to bring those two ideas together. Make this type 2 personality manifest within this type 1 personality. Like bring into being what was just spiritual potential inside him, right? And to link back to your question about disconnecting, because I haven't disconnected maybe to the extent that Andrew has, because I haven't had such harsh experiences in different dimensions, etc., etc. But I have this weird complexity of mind and way that I think society. The way I see it is my type 1 is Joel Clifton, that has to go to university and that competes in a sports team and has to interact with other human beings and go to the grocery store and buy bananas and put fuel in his car and all of that stuff, right? That's the guy I have to be in the world. And that, he has physiological functions that needs to be satiated. He needs to eat, he needs to sleep, he needs to shit, right? He has that's the biological organism I am. But then there's this type 2 personality. That's who I am when I zoom out, right? That's the guy that doesn't play into all this bullshit. That's the essence and the spirit that possesses this mundane version of Joel Clifton. And you have to try to bring this, what you actually are, this being, this essence beneath it all, you have to bring that forward and manifest it in what you do in the world as much as possible. And I think that's how you survive. And it's not necessarily like you have to go on spiritual rants in your daily life to people that don't care. That's not going to work. You're not going to, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make it drink, What you need to do is just try and have that playful, divine energy that is within you in the things you do in the world. With the way you smile at the strangers you meet, the way you try and make your friends and family feel, the pursuits you go into in life, the passion and the effort you put into the things you care about, and the way that you speak and act, that stuff matters, because that vibration that we've talked about, like the way that Andrew, you described going into a woods and the way that you begin resonating with the vibration of the trees, we can be like a tree in our society. We can try and be that divine essence as much as possible in the things we do, and we can bring up the vibration of what's around us. And that I believe is like what you need to do when you disconnect. Because there's
You want to broadcast.
Yes.
You want to broadcast the
Yes.
vibration, like the trees.
And there are going to be people that reject it. There are going to be people that aren't spiritually or philosophically awake enough to even understand or comprehend the things you say. And they might reject the things you do and the way you act because it kind of reflects upon them badly. But the people who are attuned to it, like a radio that's attuned to that broadcast, you open them up,
Make the matrix better.
That's it. Be a dent in the matrix. That's what my mum has always said to me, Joel. She said, you're a dent in the matrix. And that's something that I try and live by.
Well, like you said, you want to take that you have your two different personalities. You're trying to take that type 2 and bring it. It's literally manifestation. That's why humans are creators, because everything that we have access to today, every single thing, the camera you're looking into, the speakers, every bit around you, it started as a thought. Only just a thought, and it manifested itself into a fucking product that you can use. And that's taking that type 2 or that secondary personality and manifesting it, literally taking it from an idea that you have in your head and forcing it into reality. You can force things into reality. my company, the Flying Fungi, I forced it into. I thought of it, and then I forced it to exist. Literally, I did all the things that, in thinking about it, that I had to do in order for it to exist in real life. Like, it was an idea, and now it's a reality. I wanted to touch on one other thing that you kind of touched on in the last bit you talked about, and this was one thing that I think that I realized that I pulled out of a psychedelic experience, and it's all right. We are all born, and this is like an opinion. We're all born with what I would call the everything program. Like, all the knowledge is there. And I say this because, okay, so the Wright brothers, they were the ones who invented flying, right? I don't know, at least here we had the Wright brothers. They were the first guys to get in a plane and fly. Well, the ability to fly always existed. For millions of years, that ability existed, and those guys unlocked it. So, like, when you're born and you're given a consciousness, that consciousness is possibly, this is a hypothetical, preloaded with the everything program to know everything. And when you learn something, you're actually just unlocking something that has always existed. Like, when you math, all the math always existed, but when you learn how to do trigonometry, you're unlocking it for yourself. And so, essentially, like, memorizing facts is kind of like a default. Uh, I have this written down. Give me a second. Can you guys hear me still?
Yeah.
Yeah, you're good.
All right, hold on. Let me find this. I definitely wrote this down. Where are we? Notes. No. No. Here we go. Memorizing facts is an autopilot default of learning, an exceedingly influential secondary function of mind. A setting that suits the appearance of so-called reality. The mind does and has always held all of everything. It's not until a fact becomes implemented experience can an understanding unearth itself. It's when you realize the true meaning of facts that facts have true meaning. Unlocking all of everything that is already in the mind is life's great conquest. So, are we programmed to believe? I didn't finish that thought. Can can we put things in our mind, or are we triggering a thought's emergence that laid in a singularity, always eternal?
Well, I feel like my perspective. I think I agree to I agree to an extent, but the way I would tweak it is all the knowledge and ability is already there in the world or in you, right? You have genetic information that can manifest your physical being, and the possibilities to fly planes and do all the things we do as a human race are possible out there in the world. But maybe maybe the primary function of our consciousness is to bring that potential into actuality by commanding our attention, because that's what we can do with the human mind, right? An animal, from my surface level perspective, people might disagree, but this is how I see it. An animal doesn't have a consciousness because it's driven by instinct and drive, right? It wants to eat, it wants to sleep, it wants to procreate and avoid death, right? And they're the drives that command its attention. Whereas human beings, we can consciously decide what we pay attention to. If we have a certain texture of mind, which we can work on through meditation and through practice and through experience, right? And therefore, what our consciousness does is it, through what we focused on, through what we manifest through the way that we speak and act in the world, we bring forth the potential of reality that is there within all things currently.
I like that. I mean, that's in essence. that's a minor adjustment. Yeah, you have to bring it forth, and like that is what life. When they say we are the universe experiencing ourselves, that's what it means is finding uh, infinite experience. Our job is to know ourselves, which we are the universe. So our job is to know the universe, and so you're essentially inf- infinitizing. Is that even a word?
It is now.
You're you're making an infinity because there's no end.
Yeah, man.
What do you mean by we're the universe experiencing itself?
So like you hear it all the time. We're made of stardust. All of the molecules in us existed when the Big Bang happened, or whatever. We come from stardust. Is what exploding stars is what makes the molecules that we exist, that make us up. And so all the things in the universe have happened, and this is straying from a God creator type archetype. Um, all the things in the universe happen just so we could come alive, because the universe demands that it knows itself. And so it had to create beings that could experience themselves and itself. And so it's like all the infinities led to, and that's, are there other species out there in the cosmos? Probably. And they're trying to experience the universe as the universe experiencing itself as well. Um, so humans, again, it's an opinion, made up of molecules in such a way that it created biology, so that biology could learn and expand and know itself. Because I'm trying to come up with different, different phonetics to say it, but because we are the universe, experiencing ourselves, like all of your organs, to your body, you're a god to your body. Like you can speak to your body. You could tell your heart you love it. You could tell your liver you love it, and you're probably having some kind of effect on it by saying, "I love you, liver. I love you, kidney," um, because you are the god to the universe that is your body.
Mm. Yeah. No,
That is super hard to put words to. I say that all. We're the universe experiencing ourselves. I've never had anybody try to ask me to conceptualize that. It's a very difficult concept.
yeah. Look, man. I've really enjoyed our conversation. Unfortunately, we're sort of running out of time. But we
Yeah,
have
man.
we have a final question that we usually ask every guest that comes on, and it's an opportunity for you to speak to me and Jacob, the listeners, the world, in any way, shape, or form that you like. It's an opportunity to give you a chance to say something. Could be mushroom related, could be life related, anything you'd like to say to the world, because this will be immortalized via online technology, sources of information forever. And maybe me and Jacob, when we're 45, will go back and look at the conversations we had at 20, and your one will be in there. So if there's anything you want to say to the world, I'll pass you the hypothetical microphone for you to do that before we sum up and end.
Okay. We're all looking for the meaning of life. And I don't have the answers. I don't have all the answers, but I have maybe one answer for what the meaning of life is. And it's 6 words. The meaning of life is to enjoy the passage of time.
Thank you, Andrew. Where should people go if they want to find out more about you?
I have a TikTok. It's the Flying Fungi. I have Instagram. It's the Flying Fungi with underscores. There's a Facebook page. I have a website. It's theflyingfungi.com. What else we got? I think that's all. I have a Twitter at the Flying Fungi. The THE is pretty important. We tried to form it with just Flying Fungi, and it didn't work. The reason why I'm the Flying Fungi and my logo I'm the Flying Fungi because I'm skydiving, and that's why I'm the Flying Fungi. And my little logo looks like a mushroom and a canopy.
I like that.
So someday I'll have a logo printed on my canopy, but that's 15 grand that I don't have right now.
Thanks everyone for listening. I hope you enjoyed this one. No,